back from the worldwide leader in sports, Brian Windhorst. How you doing, Brian?
I apologize. My voice is a little bit affected from 6 weeks on the road, so hopefully you'll bear with me.
I will bear with you, sir. Best you can, tell me what happened with Bob Myers and the Warriors.
Well, I don't want to try to get into Bob's head, so I'm not going to. I'm just going to say that he's 48 years old. I understand that there's burnout. We all get burnout in our jobs. He is not retiring. I don't know if he'll ever be a GM again, but he's not retiring. I think what you have here is you have a really difficult period for the Warriors. They're facing a payroll. If they re-sign Draymond Green, I'm not making any assumptions that they are or aren't. But if they re-sign him to any reasonable number, they're looking at nearly $500 million next year in payroll and luxury taxes. $500 million. It would be the most expensive team in the history of professional sports. And that team finished sixth this year and got knocked out in the second round. And if I was Joe Lacob, and again, I do not want to say that I know what he's going to do, Rich, but if it were me, I'm not sure I want to spend $500 million on a sixth-place team. And so you have a situation where Draymond is prepared for an extension. You have Klay Thompson, who's 1 year off from an extension, and I'm sure is going to want to be taken care of. You have Steve Kerr, who is in the final year of his contract, and I'm sure is going to want to be taken care of. And this is why there's a life cycle on dynasties. You reach either age out, or you get too expensive, or there's issues about who gets what. And they're facing the frontier of that. And Bob Myers looked at that whole thing, and maybe that wasn't the why he said, I'm leaving. But all of those things are there, and he said, you know what? I'm not going to stay here. So you can make of your decision what you will, but all of those factors are certainly on the table in front of the Warriors.
Well, is it fair to say then that the reserve that Myers used to have in copious amounts, or the reserve that he used to have that would be required certainly for this moment that you just laid out, got, one would say, drained by last season significantly, and the Draymond punch of Jordan Poole is what really pulled the plug on the drain?
I don't want to assume that, Rich, but here's what I'll tell you. In 2019, before Game 5, I had written a story that day about organizational fatigue that happens when a team goes for a title 3, 4, 5 years in a row. I saw it happen in Miami with LeBron. I saw it happen in Cleveland with LeBron. And I had written a story about how it's not that you're physically tired. The organization from competing, where you trade your draft picks and you can't play young players, and you're under pressure at every trade deadline, and every season starts long, and they send you overseas to start training camp because you're one of the high-profile teams. The whole thing has a wearing effect that occurs in the NBA. And Bob pulled me aside before the game and said, "My gosh, that's so true. We are totally being a feel the organizational fatigue." That was in 2019. So think of everything that's happened. That night was the night that Durant tore his Achilles. So think of everything that's happened just since 2019, and just emotionally and everything. They were fatigued back then. So imagine where they are now, and they're facing again another mountain of challenges that comes at them. I mean, I get it, but I also think it's relevant when you think about what's going to happen next, that after all this, he is raising his hand and saying, okay, I'm tapping out.
Right, and Joe Lacob said he didn't get it. He's like, I don't understand it, but I whatever makes him happy. He referred to Bob as his fifth child. So let's talk about the next. What is next? What do you think Lacob's move is going to be, Brian?
Well, he's got to decide what he's going to pay Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steve Kerr. And the thing about it is, I mean, Adrian Wojnarowski reported right at the end of the regular season that Klay Thompson was looking for a maximum contract extension. And Rich, I just think it would be very hard for the Warriors to do that. The amount of money that it would cost, I think it'd be very hard. I don't want this to be attributed to me that I'm saying they're not going to. I'm just telling you it would be very difficult to go to that level with what it would cost them, with what they've already got committed. And look, maybe they've got a trade that they can do that would vastly reduce payroll. It's just, this is not Steve Ballmer. They are a very wealthy organization. They bring in a ton of money, but they do not have bottomless pockets. They had the ownership of the Warriors in the last 3 years sold off a piece of the team to a private equity group, and they sold off a piece of the arena, which that arena is a cash cow. They sold off a piece of it to another group to fund how expensive this team is and losing money. Not because they wanted to buy a bigger yacht. That's what Paul Allen did. These guys are selling equity in the team to pay for the annual bills. And I know that it's not fun to talk about money. You want to say, well, what about how Draymond Green is going to fit with Steph Curry, and how do they match up with the Lakers or the Nuggets? I mean, that's all true. But these decisions that happen in June and July, these are money decisions. And the Warriors are smack up against just outrageous sums of money that are due. They're smack up against a whole bunch of rule changes that have been put in the new collective bargaining agreement directly to limit them. Basically, almost every move that they've made in the last 3 years has been legislated out in the new collective bargaining agreement. They're just facing all this pressure pounding down on top of them. It's not easy. I mean, they have 4 rings, so don't lay awake tonight and worry about them. But, they're in a really difficult situation about keeping this together. And, the first stress point, we've got a break here with Bob Myers asking out.
And in terms of Myers asking out, when is he exactly free? And it's interesting you mentioned Ballmer's name. I mean, every Clipper fan down here in Los Angeles, knowing that there's a general manager vacancy here in Los Angeles, is thinking maybe Bob wants to come home, Southern California.
Well,
what do you think?
Well, that's not the same. Lawrence Frank is the president of basketball operations. The general manager job at the Clippers is the number 2 job.
Right.
But I'm not sure that Bob is leaving because he's immediately trying to go get another job. I would be surprised if he doesn't work again, but I don't think that's what this is.
Okay. And we've got Brian Windhorst here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what's the Knicks up to? What are they up to? Because that was the top of the ESPN.com news stack today, is that Scott Perry is not getting renewed for the Knicks. What are they going to do at the general manager position? What does this mean, do you think?
Well, again, with all due respect to Scott Perry, he was not the lead. And something that's happened, this is in the weeds, Rich. There's been title, embellishment in the NBA the last 5 years.
Yes.
There's no more general managers. They're now all presidents, and the number 2 is called general manager. No offense to Scott or anybody, but Leon Rose is still firmly in control there, and he's got a very full staff. Scott Perry was a holdover from the previous regime. So, but I think if you look at the Knicks, last summer they were very, very patient. They could have gone and gotten Donovan Mitchell, and it was going to cost them a lot in terms of draft compensation and young players. And they were patient. They said, we don't think that we need to make this move right now, and they were rewarded. The moves that they did make, specifically Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart and their young players developing and showing trust in Julius Randle, they got farther than the team that traded for Donovan Mitchell, the Cavs. They beat them. And so I think the challenge for the Knicks right now is, can they remain patient? And what I mean by that is they are loaded and ready. I think they could make 2 blockbuster trades with everything that they've got in terms of draft picks and in terms of young players on their roster and usable, tradable contracts. I think they could acquire 2 big-time players. The challenge for them, this is what I think that they've been discussing, is stay patient. Wait for the big one. Wait for the big-time star that becomes available that can take them from 4th to 1st. They don't want somebody that can take them from 5th to 3rd. And I think that's what the summer is going to be about for the Knicks.
Well, and then, I the name Lillard obviously leaps to mind here, and I imagine the draft is going to be an inflection point for what the Blazers might want to do with Damian Lillard, if that's even something to do. What do you think about his availability this summer and the timeline on that, since you mentioned timeline?
Rich, I think what's going on in Portland is maybe the most fascinating thing in the league. Once the finals end, that's where a lot of the focus will be, because this is not sources said. This is not insiders are saying. At the end of the season, Damian Lillard came out and said, I don't want to play with more players who are going to take 2 or 3 years to develop. No offense to all those guys. I want to play with guys who can help me right now. the general manager, who in that case is the number one decision maker, Joe Cronin, came out and said, yep, we're going to honor Dame here. We're going to make moves to acquire players that can help us right now. And then they fell backwards into the number 3 overall pick of the lottery. And, Rich, I don't even, you say the number 3 overall pick and people say, oh, Michael Jordan. Forget about Michael Jordan. I'm just going to talk about the last 10, 12 years. The number 3 picks are guys like Luka Doncic, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. These are Hall of Fame players that are available at number 3. Now, I don't know about Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson. I'm not a draft expert. I haven't broken down their high school film and interviewed their high school history for teachers. I don't know what they're going to be. But I know that the number 3 pick is not something you trade for a guy who can be your third best player. And so now the Blazers are in this spot. What do? Do they draft a 19-year-old who is indeed 2 or 3 years away from being a real contender, a real player to help them? Because even if you got Victor Wembanyama, he wasn't going to help the Blazers win the title this year. It just, rookies don't come in and affect winning and losing. They just don't. I'm telling you, go look at all of them. None of them do. And so do the Blazers make that number 3 pick available? And if they do make that number 3 pick available, who's that player? Or do they say to Dame, look, this is too valuable to us. We gotta take this opportunity. This is a once in a generation opportunity to draft another franchise cornerstone. And if that's the case, what does Dame say? Does Dame back up what he said 2 months ago that he didn't want to play with that, or what? And so I don't have the answers, Rich, but I can tell you that the whole league is watching that very closely, and there could be 3 or 4 picks in the top 10 that are available. So we could see, it may not be the best year to make the number 3 pick available. If somebody can get the number 4 pick cheaper, which is Houston. Houston has kind of said the same thing. They want to compete right away. So it's a complicated situation that's going to really play out as soon as the finals are over. Yeah,
and so June 22nd, night of the NBA draft, is this what's at play when, Charlotte's on the clock? And who they choose second overall is a domino that falls into Portland and makes this decision while they're on the clock, while, they maybe talk turkey to Lillard throughout the next couple weeks. I mean, what's the timeline, I guess, on this sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the pick only has value before it's made, right. In most cases.
Right.
And so, like I mentioned, I mentioned some other teams. I mentioned Houston. The number 5 pick, Detroit, has kind of indicated that they might be willing to make it. The number 10 pick, which is Dallas, under immense pressure to retain Kyrie Irving and to keep Luka Doncic, believing that they're competitive, I think that pick could be available. Now, we go 5-6 years sometimes before when we see top 10 picks traded. Some years we see 2 or 3 of them, but it is not a normal thing that a top 10 pick could move. But I'm just telling you, there's 4 that I know of that could potentially be on the move, and that complicates matters too. How do the Blazers drive a hard bargain for number 3 if numbers 4 and 5 potentially are available? So it's going to be a fascinating. And the other thing is it's kind of like a 3-tiered. The scouts kind of look at it as 3 tiers. Obviously, Wembanyama is by himself. Then there's a lot of people believe Brandon Miller and Scoot Henderson in 2, 3, and in some order. And then there's a 3rd tier of players between 4 and 10 that are sort of comparable. Depends on who you like, and that could affect it too. That could affect what the value of the number 3 pick versus the number 4 pick is. I mean, it's a particularly interesting strategy draft, even if it's not maybe a star-studded draft after the top few picks. There's a lot of strategy that's going to come out in this next month.
I've got Brian Windhorst. A couple minutes left with the great Brian Windhorst from the Worldwide Leader in Sports. What's the timeline on LeBron and the Lakers and Kyrie and what he, is he really thinking of retiring? I know I've asked you a whole bunch right there, but if you want to soup to nuts it for me, go for it, please.
Well, Brian. I have no idea what's in Kyrie's head. I wish you luck finding somebody who does. I don't think he intends to retire. I think he intends to try to sign a gigantic contract with somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think that team very well could be Dallas. As much as we look elsewhere, I think, Dallas has a lot of advantages. The thing about it is, I think, the Nets, after having Kyrie for several years, were just unwilling to give him the kind of long-term offer he wanted. And That's the challenge. I don't think the annual money is the issue with Kyrie. I think Kyrie is absolutely worth a single-season maximum salary. But if you give Kyrie a 3 or 4 year deal, based on his track record, that's a tough position to ask. And the Lakers are going to show their hand, Rich, because they have to make some decisions by the end of June on a number of players on their roster. They have a number of players who have options in their contract. And, none of them are LeBron James or Anthony Davis, but they got to decide whether they're going to keep Jared Vanderbilt. They got to decide whether they're going to keep Malik Beasley. They got to decide whether they're going to keep Mo Bamba. Now, you may say, how could you talk about Mo Bamba when we're talking about Kyrie Irving? How could you say that? Who cares about that? Well, Rob Pelinka came out at the end of the season and said, we want to keep our young core together. We like the guys that we acquired in these trades, and we're going to keep them together. Now, that could be posturing. He's not on the witness stand saying that. But if they go out there and clear a bunch of cap room and they waive all these guys right before the start of free agency, as we're required to do, then I think we have something that you're looking at. If they don't do that, then I think it's a much harder road for Kyrie to have an option for the Lakers. And here's the other thing: any discussion about Kyrie and the Lakers, his maximum salary is $47 million, wow. And I believe that he can get $47 million. Maybe not for 4 years, but I believe he can get that. But the Lakers, even if they cleared all the decks, cut everybody that they could only clear between 30 and 35, Rich. So any Kyrie Laker dream would probably mean Kyrie willing to take a pay cut. Maybe he will. I don't want to assume, but that's important. It's not going to be apples to apples to what Dallas potentially can offer.
So before I let you go, you have an NBA Finals thought? Key to, how is it how many bodies the Heat can run at Jokic to try and knock him off his game? Is that what it is? What do you got for me, Brian?
I don't think he's stoppable offensively.
Right.
I think he will kill you offensively. I think the way to get to him is to try to beat him at the rim. He's not a good rim defender. It's probably the one part of his game where he's lacking. If you attack him in that situation, you can score some points. I will tell you this. The Heat have won the first game of a series, game 1, 6 consecutive series. They did it in Milwaukee this year, they did it in New York, and they did it in Boston. So they are a devastating game 1 team. And Denver has been off for 9 days. So I think typically I'm a big believer in game 1 should never be overreacted to. But if Denver is able to find the rhythm that they had, because they were awesome in that series with the Lakers. They played fast. They've got a great crowd at home. Their offense, when it's humming, is devastating. Jokic, when he's going, is just awesome. If they can rediscover that form and right out of the gates put the Heat on their heels, the Heat haven't been down in the – they basically didn't trail. They haven't trailed. They haven't been behind in a series. They've been ahead for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I think, you would say, well, of course the Nuggets will win game 1. They are sitting at home and the Heat are having to travel. Maybe, but I would just say the Heat are experts at coming out and surprising you because they always have different game plans and they have different things that they can do and they sneak up on you and they're crafty. But they're 10-2 in the last 6 years. In the Jokic era, they're 10-2 against the Heat. Jokic has pretty much owned the Heat. There's some compelling data points in there.
Brian, I appreciate it. I know you said you've been traveling like crazy for 6 weeks, and I appreciate your voice holding up. Do you have a good place in Paris that you know where I can get something to eat? Brian, you know any good spots in Paris, in France? Brian?
Yeah, here's what you do. You come out of your hotel.
Yes.
And you turn left or you turn right and you walk a block and you'll find something. That's how it works.
That was it? I mean, seriously. So did you know you were just you're flying to France for a 2-minute interview? You knew that, right? That was it? That was your assignment?
Well,
Brian?
It wasn't. Well,
what was that?
It wasn't just a 2-minute interview.
Okay.
I was there for days. I can't say what else we did while we were there because there's a draft coming up, but we have more content than just that. I've also published 2 gigantic written stories on Victor, but he did recommend to me a truffle bar. I had never been to a truffle bar before. Have you ever been to a truffle bar?
I have not, sir.
Rich?
So you went truffle barring with Victor Wembanyama? Is that what you're saying, or suggested?
I didn't go with him.
Okay.
Although I have had lunch with him I was there also in January. I've been twice this calendar year.
Oh.
But it's a brasserie in Paris where all the dishes have truffles in them, including the ice cream.
Ooh la la. Okay. All right, Brian. So you saying that
Victor is a huge truffle fan. Any outlets in San Antonio, I recommend if you want Victor Wembanyama's business to stock up on your truffles.
Okay, so the Riverwalk needs a truffle brasserie is what you're saying. That's what you're saying.
That would be a good idea.
Okay, very good. That's excellent inside information. By the way, when you were saying that there's more than just your 2-minute interview trip to France, you were there all week. I was doing your pointing GIF. I was doing that off camera here. That's what it looked like because you're giving me stuff to think about, Brian. You're giving me stuff, as always. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it.
Take care, man. Be well. Enjoy your week, too. That's Brian Windhorst getting ready to cover the NBA Finals for ESPN right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Great nuggets that we just got right there about the Denver Nuggets. Yeah. Look out for the Heat in Game 1. You even said that yourself, Chris. Yeah. Look at you. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.